Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Year-End Part 2. So this is all about processing payroll year-end. Now we did also have Year-End Part 1, and while we aren't running the live sessions for this anymore, if you did miss it, we do have the recording available at sage.co.uk/webinars. And this webinar went through installing the update and preparing for year-end. Something else that we're doing this year is running even more webinars themed around common topics over payroll year-end. So this is things such as online payslips and P60s, starters and leavers, plus lots more. So more information on those at the end of the session. But my name's Alice and I'm joined today by my colleague Duncan. We're both your hosts and presenters for the session. Little look at what we're going to be covering today too. So Duncan is going to kick things off with some key dates and deadlines around payroll year end and just a recap of that preparation checklist for those of you who didn't make it to part 1. And he's then going to go over the whole payroll year end process from start to finish, including demonstrating this in the programme. I'm then going to come back to show you getting ready for the new tax year, so a couple of different things to get sorted and checked before you begin processing. And then we'll move on to what's new for 25 to 26, so new legislation and new features in the programme as well. And then at the end, of course, always some further support to go through and hopefully some time to finish answering your questions too. But that's what we've got planned. And we'll begin with that introduction then. So I am going to pass over to Duncan to go over that with you.
Thank you so much, Alice. So I'm going to start things on with this introduction, starting with some of your payroll year-end key dates and deadlines. So let's take a look at these across a timeline. And we're going to start back on the 24th of February, which was the date that we released your payroll year-end update, and that was version 31 of your software. About a week later, we did release a new build of the update. That's version 31.00.231. And that became a mandatory update on the 5th of March. So this means that if you haven't already installed the update, you should be prompted to do so before you can even log into your payroll. So I'm hoping that most, if not all of you, are already on the latest version. Now, just to let you know, we have also released a background update, which installs silently in the background without you needing to do anything. So your version number will at some point update to 31.00.236. But as long as it's build 231 or above, you're good to go for year end. The next key date is the 5th of April. This is the last day of the current tax year, 2024 to 25. And by that date, you should have completed your last pay run of the current tax year and have submitted your FPS for that pay date. The 6th of April is the first day of the new tax year. So any pay date from the 6th of April onwards would fall into 2025 to 26. And you need to have completed the steps to get ready for the new tax year that Alice will be taking you through later on in the webinar. The next dates are deadlines. So we have the 19th of April, which is the deadline to do your final submission of the tax year, which is one of the steps I'll show you in the year-end process. And then the 31st of May is a deadline to issue P60s to all current employees. So that is employees still employed by you as at the 5th of April. Now, just to remind you what we cover in the webinars, in part 1, we covered installing that update and preparing for year end. And then in today's session, we're going to go through the full year end process, start to finish, and all of those steps to get ready for the new tax year. Now, before you can get on with year end, you need to make sure you've completed your preparation. So these are the steps that we covered in part 1. So to quickly run through them, number 1, you need to make sure you've installed your year end update. So make sure that you are on version 31. Step number 2 is to process and update all periods within the 24 to 25 tax year. So make sure you've updated records for your last pay date of the year. Step 3 is to process leavers who left before the 5th of April and have received their final pay. Step 4 is to submit your FPS for your last pay date of the year, and if required, an EPS for month 12, for example, if you've reclaimed any statutory payments. And then step 5, please ensure that you have an up-to-date backup of your payroll data. Always better to be safe than sorry, so make sure you've got that backup that you could restore should anything go wrong. And you can read more about these steps if you follow the link to our guide on the slide. So let's now take a look at that payroll year-end process. So first of all, we're going to run you through the steps involved before we go into that full demonstration. So we're going to be working through the steps in the year-end process map, moving left to right. So you would start by selecting the tax year that you're running year-end for, which will be 24 to 25. And then you would do your internet submission, which is your final submission of the tax year. And the deadline for that is the 19th of April, but you can submit that just as soon as you're ready. So you don't need to wait until the end of the tax year. As long as you've completed your final pay run of 24 to 25 and all the other preparation, you can get on and get that sent. You would then move on to produce your P60s. So a number of different formats you can do this in, and we'll explain a bit more about that in a moment. And those P60s need to be given to your employees by the 31st of May. So you've got a bit more time to complete that step. The rest of the steps are just a little bit of housekeeping. So you take a backup of your payroll data. You would run complete year end, which will then move you into the new tax year, ready to get ready for your first pay run. And then finally, distribute year-end returns will be a reminder to give out the P60s by the deadline, and also some reminders of your payment deadlines. Now, when it comes to the P60s, you've got the same choices as you have for payslips. So some of you will be uploading P60s to the online portal, which would be Sage HR online services, or if you're an accountant, the online bureau portal. You might choose to email your P60s, and that would use the same settings as email payslips. So that would be the same mail provider, either Outlook or webmail, and the same password for your employees to open their P60s. And the third option is to go old school and to print the P60s. And you can do that directly onto plain paper. So there's no stationery required. You can't even get stationery from Sage or HMRC. So you've got that option of printing onto plain paper, and maybe even saving a PDF for your own records. So we will touch on each of those options in the demo, which we're going to go into now. So let me go full screen for you. And we'll bring payroll up on screen. First thing just to point out is that I have completed my last pay run of the tax year. So I pay my employees monthly. And if you just check the dates in the last updated and last FPS date column, you can see that that's showing the 31st of March, which was my last pay date of the year. And I'm also on the latest version. So you can see that at the top of my screen. You can also check your version number if you go to Help and then About. And then if you look in the section for program details, you need to make sure your version number is 31.00. and then either 231 or 236. So because I've completed my preparation, before I move on to the year-end steps, one thing we strongly recommend is to set your process date to the 5th of April. And this will ensure that if you do choose to run any additional year-end reports, it will include all employees that have been paid during the tax year, and it'll show the correct year-to-date values for the current tax year. So from my payroll tasks, I'm just going to select Change Process Date. Currently, it's set to my last pay date, but I'm going to change this to the 5th of April, 2025. If I then click OK, I'm all set and I'm ready to move on to the payroll year-end steps. Now, to find these steps, I need to click Payroll Year-End towards the bottom left corner. And as you can see, we have that process map that I showed you on the slide, and the steps we're going to work through running left to right. Now, at the moment, the tax year chosen is 23-24, which was the last year end that I ran for this company. So first thing we need to do is to click on to Choose Tax Year. I'm then seeing a message asking if I want to clear any selections and criteria to include all employees paid during the tax year. So whenever you see this message in the year-end process, simply click Yes to continue. And then we can go ahead and check our payroll year-end details. So number one, make sure that the tax year chosen is 2024 to 25, like so, and that the report date is the 5th of April, 2025. Now the section underneath for cessation date is only for companies that have ceased to be an employer and who are closing their PAYE scheme. So if that applies to you, you would enter your cessation date in that box. But that doesn't apply to us because we are still an employer. So all I would need to do is to save the year end and reports date, so the tax year and reports date, by clicking OK. And you can see there, tells me that I'm changing the tax year to 24-25. So now that we've done that, I can move on to the next step, which is to send my final submission of the tax year. Now, this submission will not contain any employee or payment details. It's simply an indicator to say it's your last submission of the year, so that HMRC know not to expect any further payroll reports. When you're ready to send this, you simply click Internet Submissions, and that will then pop up with the Employer Payment Summary screen, because this is how you send a final submission in Sage Payroll. You click on to Continue, where it will show the gateway registration and company details, the same details you've been using throughout the year. You then click Submit, and you'll see a summary of the information being submitted. So at the top here, we can see the tax year shows 24-25. And then in this section, it indicates that this is our final submission for the year. All I then need to do is to click on to Submit, and that is then sent to HMRC. And as you can see, the progress bar moves across the screen. And once it's been received, you'll see this confirmation message. The submission of the data has been successful. And then you can simply close out of this screen. So that's it done. That's our final submission sent. We're now ready to move on and produce our P60s. So when you're ready to do this, you would click on the Produce P60 step. And from here, you have the option either to upload them to the online portal, or alternatively, to print or email them. Now, you can, if you wish, mix and match. So you can go into either or both of these options as many times as you need to. So you might want a printed copy for your own records. You can even save that as a PDF. And you might have some employees that receive an electronic copy, either online or email, and others that need printed. So as I say, you can go into each of these options pretty much as often as you like. So I am going to start with print and email by clicking on this button at the bottom. And then from this screen, we select whether we'll be printing them or emailing them. So I'm going to start with print. And as you can see, I've ticked the box to preview the reports first. And this is going to give me some other output options. So I'd recommend that you leave that ticked. And if I then click on the print button, because I've got some employees that are set up to receive online documents, it is telling me that one or more of the selected employees get payslips and P60s via email or online. And it is asking, do I want to include these employees in the printed version? So if you want a full set of P60s with all of your current employees, you would click yes to include them. But if you only want to produce this report for employees who are not set up for email or online, you can click on to no, which will exclude those employees. Now I'm going to click yes, because I do want to see them all on screen. You can see the preview has now appeared. So there's one of these for each of my current employees. Please note that there won't be a P60 for any leavers who have a leaving date before the 5th of April. They get a P45 instead. But this basically shows the employees' details, their pay and income tax for the year, national insurance contributions and statutory parental payments, and then you've got your student loans and the employer's PAYE reference. So if I keep scrolling through, you can see we've got a P60 for each employee. It'll print exactly what you see here. So you can either print in color or black and white is fine as well, if you've just got a black and white printer. So if you're going to be printing them out, use the print option from the top of the preview. And if you want to save a PDF copy, maybe for your own records, you've got this export option at the top. So I'm going to click onto export. I'm just going to browse to my desktop just for this demo. We'll give the P60s a name. And now I click onto save. I've then got my copy that I can easily refer back to. So those are the printed P60s. Once I'm done, I can close out of this preview. Before I close out of this option, I will quickly show you the email. So from this drop down, I can choose email from the list. And then you've got this button to email the P60s. So depending on how you've set up Report Designer, it will either create individual emails in Outlook with the P60 attached, or it'll use your webmail settings and it will create the emails that way with the P60 attached. And it would use the same password that employees use for email payslips. So if you already do your payslips this way, P60s will work in much the same way. Now, if I just close out of the print and email option, the other one I want to show you is uploading online P60s. So if you've set up online payslips, it means you've already set up online P60s as well. It works in a very similar way, but the main difference is that you don't have an option of scheduling the P60s. If you're uploading them to Sage HR, they will upload and publish immediately as soon as you complete this step. So if you're not ready to provide the P60s to your employees at this point, you can come back to this step at any time before the deadline by simply setting your process date to the 5th of April and returning to the payroll year-end steps. Now I'm going to do it now. So I'm going to click on this upload button. You can then see my current employees that are set up for online services. So 5 of them in total. I've got them all ticked. And then when I'm ready to upload the P60s, I would simply click the upload button. Now this will just take a few moments, depending on how many employees you're dealing with, how fast your internet connection is. But when they are successfully published, you'll see this confirmation message. That also gives you a link to log into online services as the admin user, or you can close out of this screen by clicking close. Now I'm already signed in as an admin, so I want to show you what the P60s look like. So this is my Sage HR online services, and as an admin user, I can view all of my employee records. Now to show you what the employee would see, I'm just going to go into one of the employee profiles. They will have options like this on the left-hand side. If they went into their payslips and P60s, they'll see all of the published payslips, and then they can click the P60s tab. From here, we can see there's now a P60 for 24-25. So they can either view it on screen, they can download a PDF. They won't have the delete option. This is only for admins, so they'll get view or download. And if they view it, they can see the main details on screen, like so. And to get the full version of the P60, they would simply download it as a PDF. So that's really the employee view, but as an admin user, you can actually view all of the P60s in one place. So you would simply go to your payslips option on the left-hand side. You would then click onto P60s. I can see all 5 of them just here. So I can view them by clicking on them, like so. And I also have options if I select them to download them all as a PDF or to download as individual PDFs that are then zipped up. So useful options that you get here as an admin user. And one of the great things about online services with Sage HR is that your employees will be able to view their P60s from a mobile device using the HR app. So I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later on. Now, once you've produced the P60s, in Payroll, you would tick the box, confirming you've done this. You can then close out of this step, and those are your 2 main tasks of Payroll year-end complete. So all I now need to do is to complete the remaining tasks. So I'm going to move on to take a backup of my data. Just clicking on backup data here. I can then work through the backup wizard, and I'd suggest you back up the files selected automatically. These ones just here. And then use the browse option if you need to choose a location for your backup and to give it a file name. I'm just going to call this one PYE 2025. I'm going to click on to save, and I can then complete the backup wizard. So then you have a full backed up version of your payroll at the point you ran payroll year end. Moving on to the next step, I'm now ready to complete year end. So when you do this, it moves your process date into the new tax year, which will clear down the year-to-date values for that new year. But be aware that those year-to-date values aren't deleted. They're still available as historical data. So you'd be able to report on them or set your process date back into the previous year if you ever needed to view these in the employee record. So when you're ready to do this, you would click on to complete year end. It's then going to ask if you want to continue. So you would click on to yes. We get a message reminding you to review and update your employees' tax codes. And Alice is going to take you through that step in a few moments' time. So I'm just going to click OK to this. And then it'll ask if you want to update your employees' mileage records using information from the mileage log. So if you've been recording business miles in the cars and fuel section of the employee records, you can click yes to record the business miles for the tax year. If not, simply click no. So I'm going to click onto no, then tells me that the year end is complete. I would click OK to that message. And if you look towards the bottom of my screen, you can see that automatically my process date has been set to the 6th of April. And that will be the first day in the new tax year, 2025 to 26. Last step to do is to distribute the year-end returns. So when you click on this, it's simply a message telling you to distribute P60s by the 31st of May, and also reminding you to make payment of your tax and NI deductions by the 19th of April. If you pay by check, you actually have until the 22nd of April, the usual payment deadline, if you pay electronically. So as a congratulations message, if you've completed the steps, you've now successfully completed year end. And we can now close out of this screen, and that is year end complete. So as you've seen there, I worked through the steps in the process map. Another way you can access these steps is you can click on the payroll year end task here on the left hand side. And if you do it this way, it just gives you a slightly different view, and it actually ticks off the steps as you do them. So completely personal preference, which way you do it, either using the process map as I did, or you can work your way through the exact same tasks from here. So that was our payroll year-end demo. Before I hand over to Alice, I did mention about the online P60s. And if you do upload to Sage HR online services, it means your employees can view this information in the HR app. So a quick look at that. Got a very short video here to show you what it looks like in the app. So as soon as you publish the P60s, the employees get a notification on their phone telling them there's a P60 available. They can tap onto that to take them straight into the HR app and select the P60s option towards the bottom of the screen. And as you can see there, there's a P60 for 24-25. They can view the information by scrolling through. And they also have that share option at the bottom, which allows them to save the full P60 as a PDF onto their mobile device. And they can email that if they need to, or send it as a message. So a nice little feature giving convenient access to both payslips and P60s to your employees, and they can download that Sage HR app from the App Store or the Google Play Store. So that's about it from me, but we're now going to bring Alice back. She's going to take us through the next steps on getting ready for the new tax year. So back to you, Alice.
Thank you, Duncan. So that was processing payroll year end, and now that our process date is in the new tax year, just want to take a look at a checklist that we've put together for getting ready for your first payroll of the new tax year. And just to let you know, Duncan did mention this earlier as well, if you do need to move on and get these steps done before you finish processing year end, you absolutely can. So you just follow the steps that we're about to go through. And then if you need to complete anything with year end, you can change your process date back to the 5th of April 2025 and then finish those year end tasks that aren't completed. But for now, let's take a look at that checklist for getting ready for the new tax year, which is going to start with checking that you're on the correct version number of payroll. So this is version 31.00.231 or higher. And you can check this and help and about in your software, just in that program details section, which is in the top left of the support information page. Second step is to update your employees' tax codes. So this could be the week 1, month 1 flag, or if you've received any individual tax code notices from HMRC for your employees. And then step 3 and 4, so this is applying for employment allowance and then also setting up small employers relief. Now, just to make this clear, they are totally different to each other, so in no way related, but they are both things that you might be eligible for. They've also both had some pretty significant changes this year, so I just want to take a look at those with you, what they are, and then how you can apply for them too. And before we dive into another demo, just want to talk about the tax codes a little bit more, because the personal allowance for the 25-26 tax year does remain frozen, as it has for quite a few years now. And this means that there's no uplift to the tax codes ending in L, M or N, as well as the emergency tax code remaining as 1257L to reflect that frozen allowance of £12,570. It's a little bit of information about that, but something you will need to do when you're getting ready for the new tax year is clear any of the week 1, month 1 flags that your existing employees have. And this means that from the start of the new tax year, the tax will calculate on a cumulative basis. So I'll show you a nice quick way to do this via the global changes option in the programme. And then, as I touched on, you might also receive individual tax code notices for some of your employees. These are called P9 notices, and these will need to be actioned as appropriate in payroll too. They usually come through in like February or March, and these are going to tell you the changes that you need to apply or changes that you need to make with effect from the 6th of April. There are also a few ways that you can apply them depending on how you do tax codes in the programme, so whether that's through the IR Secure mailbox in payroll, or if you get them via post, you can apply them in the employee record too. So let's go to a demo. We'll take a look at some of these steps then. So first thing was to check that you're on the correct version number of payroll. Dead quick to do this. From payroll, you're just going to go to the help menu and then about. And once the support information loads up, we're just looking for that program details section here in the top left. And this first thing in this list here is the current version number. So as I said, if this is 31.00.231, or in my case 236 with the background update, you're absolutely good to go, as long as it's higher than 231. And now that I'm getting ready for the new tax year, I also just need to check that my process date is ready to do these tasks and things as well. So that's set to the 6th of April, and we actually changed that. The programme actually changed that on the complete year-end step. This is the process date that we do recommend that you process all of the kind of getting ready for the new year tasks on. And do remember, it does automatically change that, but definitely worth double checking at this point. Next thing to check was tax codes. So just notice the current tax codes for my employees here. I do have one with this week 1, month 1 flag. So moving into the new tax year, these flags need to be cleared. And the best and most efficient way to do this is via the global changes option. And what that's going to do is check all of your employees and then remove the flag for anyone who has it. In order to do this global changes step, first thing I'm going to do is just go to the criteria option. And I just want to make sure that I'm not excluding any of the employees who are on hold, on holiday, or current year leavers. Historical leavers are fine, they're for a previous tax year. Just make sure you've not excluded any of these employees, and then click OK. You then want to make sure that you're in the All Employees section of the outline, and if you can't see the outline, you can just toggle that on and off using this icon. And this is going to make sure that you've got all of the employees in your employee view, regardless of their payment frequency or any employee groups that you've got set up as well. I'm then just going to go and clear and swap my selection so everyone's highlighted. And then to do this global change, I'm going to go to Tasks, down to Global Changes, along to Tax Codes, and then last thing in this list here, so clear the week 1 month 1 flag. This will bring up a message asking if we do want to proceed with this global change for the 9 selected employees. So I'll go ahead and click yes. And we can see a total of 9 employees was successfully updated. So 9 of the employees were checked. And if you just keep an eye on this tax code for the last employee in that list, as soon as I click OK, I can see that that week 1 month 1 flag has now been removed for the employee who had it. So that's how to use the global change to clear the flags. I do also want to take a look at changing individuals' tax code notices as well, though, because you might have received some of those notices from HMRC. You are able to apply them in Sage 50 Payroll using the mailbox, which is from eSubmissions, and just this IR Secure mailbox option here. Now, if you don't know what this is, we do have a whole webinar going through this and what it is, setting it up and using it as well. But just to give you an idea, we'll open this up. If it doesn't automatically bring up the mail and on the left-hand side here, you can click New Mail, and that's going to refresh the mailbox and pull through anything there. And we can see I've got some P9 notices here that came through in February, which I can now apply. Now, if you don't have many notices, you can open them up by selecting them and clicking Open, and you can just apply for them in here. So we can see the information. We can see it's for employee number 2, what the tax code's changing to, and its effective from date. And I'll be able to just go ahead and click Apply here. You can apply them early too and get organised ahead of time. So because it has an effective from date, this means that once you've applied it from here, Payroll would automatically make that change once this effective from date comes around. Now, I do only have 2, but for example, if you did have a lot of employees or a lot of notices in here, a couple of ways that you can apply them all at once. So you could hold the Control key on your keyboard and select multiple notices at a time. You could also select the first one in your list, hold Shift and select the last one to select them all. Or alternatively, you can use the clear and swap icons here, which will just clear and swap the selection of all of the notices in here. Once they're all highlighted, you can open them all at once. So we can see I've got 2 P9s here, what the tax code's changing to, effective from 6th of April, and I'll be able to go ahead and click Apply here. Again, just a little notice to confirm that we want to make this change. I'll click Yes, and I can see both of those tax code notices have been successful. So I've applied those P9s. I'm just going to close the mailbox, and I just want to open up one of the employees who's had that change. So if we go to employee number 2's record and employment and tax code, I can see that tax code change has happened there. And that's because my process date is set to the 6th of April and it was effective from the 6th of April. This is also how you'll be able to see previous tax codes as well, just this little plus icon. So we can see the kind of previous tax codes for them. And if you didn't receive tax code notices online, maybe you received them by post, for example, this is also where you would come to add this and manually change the employee's tax code. So you could click Add in the relevant details, the tax code, whether it's week 1, month 1, and the effective from date, and then you'll be able to add it there. But that's the tax codes, and that's that step done. And the next step was to apply for employment allowance if you're eligible. So a little bit about this first. So employment allowance is a government incentive and it is available to most employers, although there are some exclusions. And what it allows you to do is reduce the amount of employers' national insurance that you pay each year up to the annual allowance, which this year is £10,500. Now previously this was £5,000, has more than doubled now, as I say, to £10,500 in the 25-26 tax year. And this could be really helpful to offset some of the other increases that we're seeing for employers' national insurance. It has also been opened up to more employers. So previously there was a limit of £100,000 of employers' national insurance to be eligible for employment allowance, but they have got rid of that now, so it's open to more employers. And because it is opened up to more people too, state aid rules no longer apply either. Now, if you are eligible for this, you can apply in Sage 50 Payroll from your settings, and you can apply any time from the 6th of March. So applications are now open for the 25-26 tax year. You just need to make sure that your process date is set to the 6th of April 2025 in order to apply, and I'll show you this shortly. You can technically apply for it at any time in the tax year as well, just want to mention that, but we always advise to apply for it as soon as you can, before you begin processing in the new tax year ideally. The sooner that you apply for it, the sooner that you can get that allowance. So before I show you this in the programme, just a little bit about the exclusions too. So exclusions do apply to public bodies or businesses doing more than half your work in the public sector. Companies with one director who is the only employee liable for employer national insurance contributions. And for groups of companies or charities, so if you've got any connected companies, just to make you aware that only one company in the group can claim the employment allowance. And you can read more about those exclusions and just employment allowance in general using that link at the bottom of the slide. But let's take a look at how you'll do this in the programme and how you'll apply for this. So first thing I'm going to do, just again, double check your process date and make sure that's set to the 6th of April, 2025. I'm then going to head to settings. So I'll go to company and we can see the settings at the top. And this is where you'll apply for employment allowance. So just in this first details tab, bottom left, we've got the options for employment allowance. So we're going to click apply for EA. Remember, state aid rules no longer apply. So in this first drop down, I'm going to click not applicable. And then we're going to submit this application to HMRC. So what this is going to do is bring up an EPS. So it is an EPS. It isn't different to a normal one though that you would send if you were reclaiming statutory payments, for example. And this is actually the application for employment allowance. So I'll click continue, double check these details here, and then click submit. And we can see here for employment allowance that is flagged as yes. So this is the application for employment allowance. I'll go ahead and click submit. So we did that final submission of the previous tax year and the year-end steps that Duncan showed you earlier. We're now doing the first submission of the new tax year, which is applying for EA. That's been successful. So now that that is submitted, you'll be able to tick this box to say that you are eligible for employment allowance. This brings up this window with just a little bit more information. So if your application is successful, you won't hear anything from HMRC. But if it is rejected, you will receive an automated message from HMRC within 5 working days of your application, just with that kind of information on there. Little reminder as well, if you are part of a group or a charity, only one company can claim the allowance. So I'll just click OK. And then to save those settings with employment allowance applied for there, I'll just go ahead and click OK again. So that is employment allowance all set up. And as I process in the new tax year, the P32 report is going to show how much employment allowance I'm claiming each period until I use up that £10,500 allowance. As I say, more information at the bottom of this slide on EA2. But that's step 3 of getting ready for the new tax year. Last step here is to set up small employers relief. So again, some pretty significant changes for the new tax year for this. I also just wanted to make it very clear though that small employers relief is completely different to employment allowance. They are in no way related to each other. Small employers relief, this is a relief that you can get when you're reclaiming statutory parental payments. So things like maternity, adoption pay, paternity pay, etc. And employers can qualify for this if their total Class 1 national insurance contributions are £45,000 or less in the tax year before the qualifying or matching week. And when I say total Class 1 national insurance contributions, this means employers and employees. So definitely worthwhile checking at the beginning of the tax year just to see if you are eligible for this or not. If you don't claim this, all employers can still reclaim 92% of parental payments. But with small employers relief, you can get 100% of the statutory pay plus a further 8.5% as national insurance compensation. So this used to be a combined amount of 103%, but in the new tax year, it is now going up to 108.5%. Dead easy to apply for this as well. Let me just bring payroll back up. We first of all need to check that our total Class 1 national insurance contributions for the previous tax year were £45,000 or less. So to do this, I'm going to first of all change my process date to the previous tax year. I'm just going to change it to the 5th of April in this case. And now that I've done that, from the payroll link section, we do have a quick link to the P32 report. So this is going to be able to show you those previous contributions. So normally you would run the P32 a tax month at a time, so month 1 to 1, 2 to 2, etc. I'm actually going to run it for the whole previous tax year, so tax months 1 to 12 of 24-25, and then click OK. And I'll just make this a little bit bigger. So once it loads up, it is line number 4 that you're after. So the gross national insurance for the previous tax year was just less than £24,000. So if this figure is £45,000 or less for you for the previous tax year, you are eligible for small employers relief in the new tax year. So I am eligible. I can now go ahead and set that up. So let me close this down. We'll have to go back and change our process date back to the 6th of April to the new tax year. And then to set up small employers relief, still going to go back to company, and you'll find it in settings. First details tab again, but this time we're going to look on the right hand side, and you'll see you've got a tick box here to say that you're eligible for small employers relief for 25-26. If you are eligible, so after you've checked those total national insurance contributions, you can click and tick this box here. If you're not, of course, just leave that alone there. And then just to save those settings, click OK. And that is small employers relief applied for as well. So that's the 4th step for getting ready for the new tax year. If you have completed these 4 steps that I've shown you, you are now ready to go ahead and get started with processing payroll in the new tax year. So at this point, it is a good time to move on to our next section of the webinar, which is what's new for 25-26. So I'm going to cover the main changes to legislation. I'm then going to cover some of the new features in payroll as well. Now, all of the legislation changes are built into payroll. They were included in the payroll year-end update, but you can also find the legislation in the programme, which I'll show you shortly. So first thing I want to cover is tax codes. So I did touch on this earlier, but the emergency tax code remains the same, 1257L, as the personal allowance is also the same as £12,570. For PAYE, no changes to the bands and rates for England, Wales and Northern Ireland, but there are some changes to the starter rate and basic rate bandwidths in Scotland. Some bigger changes to national insurance this year, though. The employer national insurance rate increases from 13.8% to 15%, and this is for earnings above the secondary threshold. Also, with the secondary threshold, that's actually been reduced this year to £5,000. So this will mean an increase in employer national insurance costs for the 25-26 tax year. The lower earnings limit as well, this has been increased to £125 per week from £123, and this is the level of earnings that employees need to qualify for statutory payments. The national minimum wage and national living wage will also increase with effect from the 1st of April, so today. And that's going to go up to £12.21 per hour for ages 21 plus. There are also increases to the rates for the younger brackets too, which you can check in the legislation settings of payroll. Everything is in there, including all of these changes. Moving on to statutory payments as well. So the rate of SSP, statutory sick pay, this is increasing from £116.75 to £118.75 per week, as well as the standard rate of parental payments as well. So that is increasing to £187.18 per week. And also remember that big change for small employers relief too. So increasing to 8.5% national insurance compensation, meaning if you are eligible, you can reclaim more of those statutory parental payments. Student loan thresholds as well. These have increased for plan types 1, 2 and 4. Postgraduate though, this does remain the same. And then lastly, auto enrolment thresholds and the earnings trigger, they do remain the same in 25-26 tax year, so no changes for that either. There's some of the main changes I did just want to bring up at this point. A lot of the changes that we have mentioned here will have an impact on the employer national insurance costs. So with these changes in mind, we have created a new report to help you plan for and forecast these employer national insurance changes based on what you've paid employees in previous periods. Now, this report isn't automatically in the programme, but it is available to download from the Help Centre, and it can be added to your reports in Sage 50 Payroll, and then you'll be able to run it for the last year, for example, just to get an indication on what impact these changes might have for you, with kind of projected increases and things like that too. So on the handout, this link at the bottom, this will take you straight to the article where you can follow the instructions to download the report, what it does and kind of how to run it as well. So I will be showing you this report, but before I do, let's just go back to Payroll. And I just want to show you where you'll be able to find the legislation. So if we go to Company and then Legislation here, these are all of the legislation settings for 25-26 with all of the different tabs along the top as well. So if you did want to check any of the new changes, for example, national insurance, you can see the increase to employer national insurance there. If you wanted to check things like statutory payments, student loan thresholds as well, this is the place to come. So the company legislation settings. As for the employer national insurance cost indication report that we've created, I have already downloaded this and it is in my user defined folder of reports. So if I just show you what this looks like, we'll highlight everyone and go to reports. I have favorited it, but once you download it from the Help Centre, you will be able to find it in your user defined folder. So we'll run this now. So I have processed every pay period in the last tax year, and I'm actually going to go ahead and run it for the whole previous tax year. So 6th of April 24 to the 5th of April 2025. And this is what that new report will look like. So this is what each employee was paid in the last tax year, including their NI cost at the old rate, so the current like 13.8% there, and what the projected cost would be with that new legislation if everything remained the same. So we've got that new rate of 15% employer national insurance there. Now, obviously, there can be, changes if anyone receives more or less pay, etc. Lots of variables in payroll, but it does just help to give a projected cost for each employee. And if we scroll to the bottom, you can see it does have a grand total at the bottom there. So just a projected idea of what your difference in national insurance could be. And remember, if you are eligible for employment allowance, you can claim back more of this national insurance than you would have previously as well. So just a reminder of that. But if I just show you the article quickly as well. So this is available on the Help Centre and the handout does link to this as well. But this is going to bring up all of the information about the changes obviously to the employer national insurance, what the report is as well, a video of how to download it and how to use it. And if we just scroll down to download the report, all you need to do is click this report to download it. And then you're basically just going to copy and paste that into the user-defined folder in your reports directory. So these steps will walk you through exactly how to do that. So that was just some of the legislation changes that I wanted to cover. Something else that I do want to talk about though are the new features of the programme. A couple of big ones this year. So there is a new statutory payment called Statutory Neonatal Care Pay, or SNCP. And this is for babies born 6th of April 2025 or later, and it's available to parents of babies admitted to neonatal care within 28 days of the birth who stay in hospital for at least 7 continuous days. So parents who are eligible, they can take up to 12 weeks of leave, depending on how long the baby's in care, in addition to other parental leave entitlements they've already got, like maternity or paternity. So, for example, they could take their maternity leave, for example, then at the end of their SMP entitlement, they could then take their neonatal care leave entitlement. For partners maybe who are taking or have taken paternity pay, they could take the neonatal pay while the baby's still in hospital if they need to as well, kind of on the back of that paternity. Now, SNCP is paid at the standard weekly rate for 25-26, which is £187.18, or 90% of the average weekly earnings, so whichever is lower in that case. And I will show you where this new feature is in the programme shortly and where you'll be able to enter that information. But again, more information linked at the bottom of this slide. Something else new in the programme, which is relating to salary sacrifice pensions. There is a new option to add employers' national insurance savings to employer pension contributions. So the programme will be able to calculate the employer national insurance saving and add that to the employer's contribution, whether that's a fixed amount or a percentage. and it does this for each period for most employees if they're a non-director. It can be done for directors, but it won't be done automatically, and it won't be automatically added until the last period of the tax year for them, just with their national insurance being calculated differently to employees. But this is a big improvement, as if this applied to you previously, it would have most likely been a case of using a fixed amount contribution and manually calculating that each period. So this new feature will likely save you a lot of time in the future if this is something that you use. And just to quickly show you where each of those options are, we'll go back to payroll here for the last time. First thing is neonatal care pay. So if we just clear my selection, we'll just open up one of my employees, for example. And since this is a new statutory payment, it's going to be found in the same section as the other ones, so absence tab. And just along the bottom, we can see the new option there for SNCP. In here, you'd be able to record the relevant details, including the first date of neonatal care in the hospital there, whether you've received the declaration, so you've just got that same tick box there, and then of course the average weekly earnings for the employee. Something a little bit different is this table on the right hand side though. So this is going to be used to record the weeks that the employee is taking, which payroll is going to then use to calculate their entitlement of SNCP each pay period. You've got the same tabs there, as usual as well with the entitlement and things too. Next thing is salary sacrifice pensions too. So if I just open up my pension schemes, just my company pension schemes first of all, we can see I do have a salary sacrifice pension scheme set up. So I'll click edit just to show you these settings. And in here on the first tab, you've got a new tick box at the bottom to add employer national insurance savings to pension contributions. So I'm going to go ahead and tick this box and click OK. And just to show you what this will do, I'm going to change my process date to my next pay date. So I've got a monthly payroll. My next pay date is going to be the 30th of April. And then let me just go into this employee again, just to show you. So if we go to pensions and manage schemes, and then edit, we've got a salary sacrifice pension scheme for the employee. And currently I can see that I've got the 10% amount for the employee contributions, the salary sacrifice amount. But for the employer contributions, it's currently a fixed amount. So this is how I previously did it. I just had to manually work this out to include the national insurance savings as well. But what I could now do is change this from a fixed amount to a percentage. I'm just going to change this to 10% as well. And click OK. And what payroll is going to do is work this out. And since I ticked that box in my pension scheme settings, it's going to work out the national insurance savings and automatically calculate and add that to the contribution each period. So let's save the record and let's go to enter payments. And just to show you this as an example, I did just add a salary of £3,000, nice round number, just to keep this calculation easy. And we can see bottom left here, the salary sacrifice amount of 10%, so £300 at the bottom here. If I just click employers at the bottom, just to see those employers amounts, I can see I've got the 10% salary sacrifice amount of £300, the 10% employer contribution of 10% as well, which is also £300. So that's 600 plus what payroll's automatically calculated there. So £45. That's been automatically calculated and added for the employer national insurance savings on top of those contributions. So saves a lot of time there. It does automatically do that for you. So that's a big change there for salary sacrifice pensions. For each of these new features and things, so as I said, there are links to to more information on the slide, so make sure that you do download the handout and check out those links if you do want to know a little bit more. But they're the main changes and main features to mention. About all we've got time for as well, but a couple more that I do want to briefly mention. So other features and improvements include Payroll Assistant. So this is now available in all variants of the programme. It did only used to be available for those of you with Payroll Professional. So just above your employee list, there did used to be a health check option. This is now changed to Payroll Assistant with enhanced functionality. If any of you are Freeport or Investment Zone employers as well, you will now need to record the workplace postcode for employees who are on a Freeport or Investment Zone national insurance category. To do this, there is a new field in the employee record for this too. And last thing to mention today, there is a reduced national insurance category validation check for those of you with employees on categories B, E or I, most commonly B. This is going to validate the employee's date of birth and just make sure that they're using the correct category and qualify for their age too. And more information on what's new in version 31 of Sage 50 Payroll is available just by clicking the link at the bottom of this slide. But that's it for what's new. That's about all we've got time for, and that does bring us to the end of the content. So we are now going to move on to further support, and I'll bring back Duncan to go through this with you.
Thank you very much, Alice. So as I say, we are nearly out of time. We're just going to spend the last couple of minutes highlighting some of the further support that's available to you while the team behind the scenes get on with answering the last questions. So in terms of webinars, year-end part 1 has now ended for the live sessions, but there is a recording available on our website, sage.co.uk/webinars. But we do have other topics coming up over the next few weeks. This week, we are running a session on online payslips and P60s. You get to find out more about how to set that up and how it all works, as well as starters and levers and corrections at year end, expanding on some of the stuff we've covered in our sessions for year end. And if you are working in HR, we also have an HR advice webinar towards the end of the month on redundancy, due pay and restructure. So you can find all of the details on our website, which we've linked to on the slide. You can also find help whenever you need it on our online help centre at sage.co.uk/help, or by clicking any of the help icons that you see in your programme. If you do need to contact our support team, if you head to the help centre first and choose a topic that you need help with, you will find a get in touch link with all of the best contact details. We also have a great online learning resource, Sage University, which you can access at sageu.com. It's completely free to create your profile and find your way to the Sage 50 Payroll training. So great resource there. I would urge you to check that out. One last service just to mention is our personalized one-to-one training. So we do have a team of Sage Payroll experts, and we can arrange one-to-one training for you and your colleagues delivered remotely. So this could be on the year-end process. You could book one in as an annual health check for your payroll, or you could discover more about other features that you may not be using, such as our pensions module or online services. So these really are the experts in all things Sage Payroll, and I would strongly recommend the service. Just to let you know, additional charges apply to the personalised one-to-one training. But if you would like us to contact you with more details on the service and a quote for that, we'll give you the opportunity to leave your details by completing a poll that we're going to put up at the end of the webinar. So if that's something that appeals to you and you'd like us to contact you with more details, stick around and just respond to the poll that we put up on the screen. So we are pretty much out of time. So as we just answered the last few questions, I would just like to thank everyone for your time today, for joining us at the webinar. I hope you found it useful and it's given you that confidence to complete your payroll year end. As you leave us, please do consider spending a moment to complete our webinar survey that will pop up. We really do value your feedback. We read all of the comments and we use it to improve our sessions moving forward. And look out for a follow-up email that we'll be sending you later on today, which includes a recording of today's session. So with that said, on behalf of myself and Alice, we're going to say goodbye at this point. We will keep the webinar open a few more minutes just for those final questions. But thanks once again for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week. We look forward to seeing you on some of our other webinars in the future. But it's goodbye for now.